The wholly, W-H-O-L-L-Y, the wholly other. It might be thought that the adjective itself gives an explanation of the substantive, but this is not so. It is not merely anatical, it is a synthetic attribute to it, i.e. tremendum adds something not necessarily inherent in mysterium. It is true that the reactions in consciousness that correspond to the one readily and spontaneously overflow into those that correspond to the other. In fact, anyone sensitive to the use of words would commonly feel that the idea of mystery, mysterium, is so closely bound up with its synthetic qualifying attribute, awful, tremendum, that one can hardly say the former without catching an echo of the latter. Mystery almost of itself becoming awful mystery to us. But the passage from the one idea to the other need not by any means be always so easy. The elements of meaning implied in awfulness and mysteriousness are in themselves definitely different. The latter may so far preponderate in the religious consciousness, may stand out so vividly that in comparison, but the passage from the one idea to the other need not by any means be always so easy. The elements of meaning implied in awfulness and mysteriousness are in themselves definitely different. The latter may so far preponderate in the religious consciousness, may stand out so vividly that in comparison with it, the former almost sinks out of sight, a case which again could be clearly exemplified from some forms of mysticism. Occasionally, on the other hand, the reverse happens, and the tremendum may in turn occupy the mind without the mysterium. This latter, then, needs special consideration on its own account. We need an expression for the mental reaction peculiar to it. And here, too, only one word seems appropriate, though, as it is strictly applicable only to a natural state of mind. It has here meaning only by analogy. It is the word stupor. Stupor is plainly a different thing from tremor. It signifies blank wonder, an astonishment that strikes us dumb, amazement absolute. Taken indeed in its purely natural sense, mysterium would first mean merely a secret or a mystery in the sense of that which is alien to us, uncomprehended and unexplained, and so far mysterium is itself merely an ideogram, an analogical notion taken from the natural sphere, illustrating but incapable of exhaustively rendering our real meaning. Taken in the religious sense, that which is mysterious is, to give it perhaps a most striking expression, the wholly other, anyad, alienum. That which is quite beyond the sphere of the usual, the intelligible, and the familiar, which therefore falls quite outside the limits of the canny, and is contrasted with it, filling the mind with blank wonder and astonishment. This is already to be observed on the lowest and earliest level of the religion of primitive man, where the numinous consciousness is but an inchoate stirring of the feelings. What is really characteristic of the stage is not, as the theory of animism would have us believe, that men are here concerned with curious entities called souls or spirits which happen to be invisible. Representations of spirits and similar conceptions are rather one in all early modes of rationalizing a precedent experience, to which they are subsidiary. They are attempts in some way or other, it little matters how, to guess the riddle it propounds, and their effect is at the same time always to weaken and deaden the experience itself. They are the source from which springs, not religion, but the rationalization of religion, which often ends by constructing such a massive structure of theory and such a plausible fabric of interpretation that the mystery is frankly excluded. Both imaginative myth, when developed into a system, and intellectualist scholasticism, when worked out to its completion, are methods by which the fundamental fact of religious experience is, as it were, simply rolled out so thin and flat as to be finally eliminated altogether. Even on the lowest level of religious development, the essential characteristic is therefore to be sought elsewhere than in the appearance of spirit representation. It lies, rather, we repeat, in a peculiar moment of consciousness, to wit, the stupor before something wholly other, whether such another be named spirit or demon or diva, or be left without any name. Nor does it make any difference in this respect whether to interpret and preserve their apprehension of this other men coin original imagery of their own, or adapt imaginations drawn from the world of legend, the fabrications of fancy apart from and prior to any stirrings of demonic dread. In accordance with laws of which we shall have to speak again later, this feeling or consciousness of the wholly other will attach itself to, or sometimes be indirectly aroused by means of, objects which are already puzzling upon the natural plane, or are of a surprising or astounding character, such as extraordinary phenomena or astonishing occurrences or things in inanimate nature, in the animal world or among men. But here, once more, we are dealing with a case of association between things specifically different, the numinous and the natural moment of consciousness, and not merely with the gradual enhancement of one of them, the natural, till it becomes the other. As in the case of natural fear and one demonic dread already considered, so here the transition from natural to demonic amazement is not a mere matter of degree, but it is only with the latter that the complementary expression mysterium perfectly harmonizes, as will be felt perhaps more clearly in the case of the adjectival forms mysterious. As will be felt perhaps more clearly in the case of the adjectival form mysterious. No one says, strictly and in earnest, of a piece of clockwork that is beyond his grasp, or of a science that he cannot understand, that is, quote, mysterious, end of quote, to me. It might be objected that the mysterious is something which is and remains absolutely and invariably beyond our understanding, whereas that which merely eludes our understanding for a time but is perfectly intelligible in principle should be called not a mystery but merely a problem. But this is by no means an adequate account of the matter. The truly mysterious object is beyond our apprehension and comprehension, not only because our knowledge has certain irremovable limits, but because in it we come upon something inherently wholly other, whose kind and character are incommensurable with our own. That's supposed to be one word, but it's two words, incommensurable, I would imagine. But because in it we come upon something inherently wholly other, whose kind and character are incommensurable with our own, and before which we therefore recoil in a wonder that strikes us chill and numb. This may be made still clearer by consideration of that degraded offshoot and travesty of the genuine numinous dread or awe, the fear of ghosts. Let us try to analyze this experience. Let us try to analyze this experience. We have already specified the peculiar feeling, element of dread aroused by the ghost as that of grisly horror, Gruselm, Grossen. Now this Gru obviously contributes something to the attraction which ghost stories exercise, insofar namely as the relaxation of tension ensuing upon our release from it relieves the mind in a pleasant and agreeable way. So far, however, it is not really the ghost itself that gives us pleasure, but the fact that we are rid of it. But obviously, this is quite insufficient to explain the ensnaring attraction of the ghost story. The ghost's real attraction rather consists in this, that of itself, and in an uncommon degree it entices the imagination, awakening strong interest and curiosity. It is the weird thing itself that allures the fancy. But it does this not because it is something long and white, as someone wants to find a ghost, nor yet through any of the positive and conceptual attributes which fancies about ghosts have invented, but because it is a thing that doesn't really exist at all, the wholly other, something which has no place in our scheme of reality but belongs to an absolutely different one, and which at the same time arouses an irrepressible interest in the mind. But that which is perceptibly true in the fear of ghosts, which is after all only a caricature of the genuine thing, is in a far stronger sense true of the demonic experience itself, of which the fear of ghosts is a mere offshoot. And while, following this main line of development, this element in the numinous consciousness, the feeling of the wholly other, is heightened and clarified, its higher modes of manifestation come into being, which set the numinous object in contrast not only to everything wanted and familiar, i.e. in the end to nature in general, thereby turning it into the supernatural, but finally to the world itself, and thereby exalt it to the supra-undane. That which is above the whole world order. I think that's probably a typo. Supra-undane. Supra-undane. That which is above the whole world order. In mysticism, we have in the beyond against the strongest stressing and overstressing of those non-rational elements which are already inherent in all religion. Mysticism continues to its extreme point this contrasting of the numinous object, the numen, as the wholly other with ordinary experience. Not content with contrasting it with all that is of nature or this world, mysticism concludes by contrasting it with being itself and all that is, and finally actually calls it that which is nothing. By this nothing is meant not only that of which nothing can be predicated, but that which is absolutely and intrinsically other than and opposite of everything that is and can be thought. But while exaggerating to the point of paradox this negation and contrast, the only means open to conceptual thought to apprehend the mysterium, mysticism at the same time retains the positive quality of the wholly other as a very living factor in its overbrimming religious emotion. But what is true of the strange nothingness of our mystics holds good equally of the sunyam and the sunyata, the void and emptiness of the Buddhist mystics. This aspiration for the void and for becoming void, no less than the aspiration of our Western mystics for nothing and for becoming nothing, must seem a kind of lunacy to anyone who has no inner sympathy for the esoteric language and ideograms of mysticism, and lacks the matrix from which these come necessarily to birth. To such an one, Buddhism itself will be simply a morbid sort of pessimism. But in fact, the void of the Eastern, like the nothing of the Western, mystic is a numinous ideogram of the wholly other. These terms, supernatural and transcendent, literally supramundane, überweltlich, give the appearance of positive attributes, and as applied to the mysterious, they appear to divest the mysterium of its originally negative meaning and to turn it into an affirmation. On the side of conceptual thought, this is nothing more than appearance, for it is obvious that the two terms in question are merely negative and exclusive attributes with reference to nature and the world or cosmos, respectively. But on the side of the feeling content, it is otherwise, that is, in very truth positive in the highest degree, though here too, as before, it cannot be rendered explicit in conceptual terms. It is through this positive feeling content that the concepts of the transcendent and supernatural become forthwith designations for a unique, wholly other reality and quality, something of whose special character we can feel without being able to give it clear conceptual expression. Compare also all stupefacer. Still more exact equivalents are the Greek, and here's something spelled in Greek that I don't know what it is, and something else spelled in Greek. The sound, tham, T-H-A-M-B, excellently depicts the state of mind of blank, staring wonder, and the difference between the moments of stupor and tremor is very finely suggested by the passage. Mark 32. On the other hand, what was said above of the facility and rapidity with which the two moments merge and blend is also markedly true of another Greek term that's written in Greek. Which then becomes a classical term for the ennobled awe of the numinous in general. So Mark 16:5 is rightly translated by Luther, und sei entsetzen sick, and by the English authorized version, and they were affrighted. 2, a spirit or soul that has been conceived and comprehended no longer prompts to shuddering, as is proved. B, spiritualism, but it thereby ceases to be of interest for the psychology of religion. 3, in Confessions 2, 9:1, Augustine very strikingly suggests this stiffening, benumbing element of the wholly other in its contrast to the rational aspect of the noumen, the dissimile and the simile. I'll try some Latin just for fun. Quid est illud, quod interlucet mihi, et percutit nornium sin liaison, et in hors co et in ardesco, in horesco in quantum dissimilis e sum, in ardesco in quantum similis e sum. And then in English, what is that which gleams through me and smites my heart without wounding it? I am both a shudder and a glow. A shudder insofar as I am unlike it. A glow insofar as I am like it.